My New Testament is Fake series. My lesson is titled today, I See the Fire. I want to read here from Genesis chapter 22 and verse 7. If you know the Old Testament, you would have known, of course, of Abraham offering Isaac. We have been told for so long now that this whole story of Abraham offering his son Isaac is a type of the Calvary salvation sacrifice that should happen in the New Testament, and that this sacrifice of Calvary with the lamb, that is Jesus, the human lamb, which is unique in creation, I guess, that makes him an animal human, or a human animal. One of those must be correct, but we know God is correct according to what they're telling us. But I'm going to show that if these are the teachings that we've been given and they came from God and his prophets, then his prophets were not correct and God was not correct, and certainly his son Jesus in the New Testament is not correct either. Genesis chapter 22, as I look at this type, as they call it, a type of something that would happen in the New Testament, and it's displayed first in the Old Testament. So hear what the verse says. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? Now look at verse 5. Prior to that, and Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. Notice when it says he's gonna go yonder, he's telling him, stay here a while until something happens, and then I'm going to come again to you once what I'm doing is complete. Stay here a little while. So he's not abandoning them permanently. He's not leaving them alone. He's going to return. I'm going to call on that verse when he says yonder later on. Now I want you to consider in your own search of the scriptures, whatever kind of Jesus belief you've got that lets you look to Jesus for salvation, you have to understand what the text is really showing you here. It is showing you that unlike what they told us, that this was a type of Christ having a sacrifice in the New Testament, and that it's a fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy from the God of Israel. Unlike all of that, Isaac is actually showing you here that Calvary should not be trusted, should not be believed on, and you cannot look to Calvary or Jesus on Calvary for any kind of salvation. I see the fire and I see the wood. In other words, Isaac is telling you the true son in this story, unlike what I would call the fake son in the New Testament story, the son in this Old Testament story, Isaac, is looking to his father and saying some more thought-worthy things. Things that are more valuable for you to take your time enough to look at them. And if you think them through carefully, you come away with more value, more wisdom for your time spent musing on these things. Things that do not deceive you. Whereas when you give more thought to the New Testament salvation of Calvary with the Son Jesus, even though he says he speaks to his Father, and what I see my Father do, I do. And he says, into thy hands I commend my spirit. When he speaks to his Father like that, you get belief, but no history, because the sacrifice or the sacrificial lamb in the Torah did not have any lamb or any animal offering up their spirit to be raised up again by the Father. I told you many videos ago, dozens of videos ago in this series, that for Christ to have risen from the dead and be seen a couple of days later walking on the road to Emmaus, or walking down the streets of Jerusalem in the marketplace, is a little bit odd, because it doesn't fit with Old Testament information. Because no one saw a lamb or a pigeon dove flying around or running around the streets in the market in Jerusalem a few days, like 3 days or so after it was slaughtered for the sacrifice. So resurrection of the creature that was slaughtered, the sacrificial animal, never happened. Once the animal paid the price remained paid. It's like when you pay for a loaf of bread, you are not supposed to have that same money in your possession because it was given back to you. A couple of days later, like maybe 3 days later, because the store owner that you bought the bread from is supposed to keep the money. It now belongs to the store owner, but you get the benefits of having handed over that money. So tell me that the living people, or the people who were left alive and who got the spiritual life, or the quote-unquote salvation, tell me that they could have still been seen living 3 days later, walking in the marketplace and walking down the road of Emmaus and so on. And I can say, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. But to see the sacrificial lamb himself walking 3 days later, something is fishy right there. If he died, he should remain dead, or the price was not really death. Death is not dying and coming back. Death has nothing to do with coming back. The Hebrews did not teach that resurrection like that. That the sacrifice should be slain and be seen running around 3 days later. But Isaac said, I can see the fire. In other words, when he reached back into the historicity of the sacrifices of the patriarchs and the pre-Israelite sacrifices, meaning before Israel was really set up as a nation, he could not look at all of that information of the past and see everything that he was seeing play out on this day. Because when he looked back into those sacrifices that he, with his Torah upbringing, his Torah learning, had cultured him to understand, he could see the fire back then in the other sacrifices before even he lived. He could see the wood used for the sacrifices before he lived. His Torah training as he grew up as a child let him understand that fire should be a part of the sacrificial system, wood should be a part of it, and so he could claim those things. But notice, he did not see the lamb in the whole setting. So the picture was different. Something didn't fit right. So he asked some questions. He made some knowledge about it. When you look at your messianic teachings of this Hebrew Mashiach, you know some things don't add up, but you don't say anything to your teacher. Why is that? Because you are not willing to do what Isaac did. Because somewhere inside of you, you have been taught inside your heart to not gravitate to truth, but to belief, but to charisma, but to stories that have no substance in them. So you have taken a feeling, a belief, a legend in place of truth, in place of common sense. Common sense alone should tell you the sacrifices of the Torah did not happen the way that Calvary happened. No human lamb was sacrificed. No human was sacrificed for the salvation of Israel in the Torah days. So he said, I can see the picture of the sacrifices, so I know what's supposed to go on here. That's why he talked about it. And you should be saying that to your teacher as well. When I see the picture in the scriptures of what happened in the Torah days, I know this don't look like it today in 2019. In this messianic following that I'm a part of, this messianic teaching that I have been given. I don't see this in the Torah days. I didn't see Moses stringing up someone on a cross. I didn't see Noah offering up a human sacrifice to be saved in the ark with his family. I didn't see Abraham offering up a human. So he talked about the things he did see. I can see the fire, I can see the wood, but Father, where is the sacrifice? Because his Torah knowledge could let him connect with the fire of the past. It could let him connect with the wood of the past, but it could not let him connect with himself as a human being the sacrifice, because no human sacrifice happened in the past that the Most High commanded. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this kind of teaching? To understand that your messianic teaching and your messianic incorrect prophecies from Daniel and the book of Psalms and Zechariah and every one of those prophets anyway, it's just all incorrect. So Isaac, being a type of Calvary, in the way that they taught us, cannot be true. If you want to think of Isaac and Calvary, I will tell you how to think of it. Because in Isaac's mind, the teaching of the Torah could not let him have any vision in the moment of a past where this unorthodox sacrificial, human sacrifice, I should say, could be a part of anything that is commanded by the Most High. Isaac could not see that. He could not remember that from the past because it never happened. Israel did not crucify their brothers for salvation. When they tried to crucify, or rather when they tried to sacrifice children, although some people deny, but you read of the Valley of Hinnom, when they tried to sacrifice their children unto Molech, the Most High complained about that. Alright? So there's no human sacrifice. So what's Jesus as a human lamb? He's still a human. He came out of a woman's womb, you tell us, right? Because the New Testament says he was born from Mary. So if he's a human, what's he doing going up on a cross for the salvation of Israel? This is not of the Torah God. This is a deception. So if Isaac is going to be any type of what goes on in the New Testament, it should more be in terms of what will let you understand that the New Testament is fake. So in effect, it is really not a type. But the closest you can come to it is just to simply go with the truth of what the book itself is saying. Although the whole book has a problem. Because as he looked at the fire. He says, I can see the fire. It's the same way as this Jesus supposedly said, I will pray the Father for you. He says, go and tarry in Jerusalem in Acts chapter 1 and Acts chapter 2. And I'll pray the Father for you, and wait in Jerusalem, tarry, until you be endued with power from on high. The Holy Ghost fell, and cloven tongues like as a fire sat upon their heads, and they started speaking tongues. I think they waited about 10 days, something like that. About 10 days. So they waited. So you see the closest match you can come is what I'm trying to tell you right here, as far as I can tell. Is that like Abraham said to the servants, stay here, wait until I return, for the lad and I go yonder, and then we will come again. Then I will come again. Same thing like this Christ is saying in the New Testament, go to Jerusalem and tarry there and wait until something comes to you. What's that? The Holy Spirit from my Father. And then the fire fell, they said, on the day of Pentecost, but I've told you that is not from God. It's just a big trick. But I'm still helping you to work through it. And the fire fell on the day of Pentecost. That's the kind of fire, the closest thing I can come to, that they're playing around with in the text. Like Isaac, I can see the fire. And I can see the wood. I can see the fire because fire should be present with that move of God, with the sacrifice, where people's lives are going to be changed based on the sacrifice. So Christ's sacrifice happened at Calvary, and an extension of that would be the Spirit falling on the day of Pentecost. Because without the crucifixion, there would have been no resurrection, they teach, that led to an outpouring of the Spirit on the day of Pentecost to kind of seal the deal. And so it is like with the sacrifices in the Old Testament, the fire usually came to consume, like with Elijah on the day of the Mount Carmel situation there, with the prophets of Baal. So you got the fire at Pentecost. And Isaac said, I can see the fire. So that seems fine. Then you get the wood of Calvary. Christ was crucified on that. Isaac said, I can see the wood as well. So I see the fire and I see the wood. But where is the sacrifice? So if you're trying to make any type and analogies, so you can try to port over something from the Old Testament to the New Testament, then why is it that Isaac does not follow you fully all the way when you say Abraham and Isaac right there in that sacrifice of Isaac? Because you say he spiritually sacrificed his son. Why is it that you stop short of going the full way? Like, why is it that Isaac, stopped short of going the full way? But you went past what Isaac did. Isaac is teaching you that you should pull back if something doesn't seem right. You should open your mouth and ask some questions. You should stop and think about what you're doing and ask your teacher questions. Ask the one doing the sacrifice. Ask the one who's leading you in the spirituality. Ask the one who said they're connecting you with God. Ask your teacher about it. Where is the sacrifice? Because Abraham was going to make a connection with God right there on that day. So he stopped his father Abraham, who was going to make the connection with God through the sacrifice, and asked the one making the connection, hey, where is the sacrifice? I see the fire, I see the wood, but where is the body? Where is the sacrifice? Where is the lamb body? Not the human body of Calvary. Not the human lamb of Calvary. Where is the lamb? Not the human lamb. Where is the sacrifice? We got the fire, we got the wood, but where is? Because Isaac could see the fire from the past sacrifices and the wood from the sacrifices he knows of Torah kind of sacrifices. but he did not know any human sacrifices in the past that was commissioned by the God of the Torah. So he says something is not right. So he stopped right there at the part of the sacrifice, the animal. He could handle the fire, he could handle the wood, but the body, he couldn't handle that. He's like, where is the body for the sacrifice? Where is the lamb? But you got the fire that seems, oh, big hooray on the day of Pentecost. And you got the wood, and he's carrying the cross on his back, the wooden cross to Calvary. And we're like, yay, salvation, he died for us. But you went too far in saying he was actually crucified. You went to an extreme where even Isaac would not go. Even Isaac would not go to saying that a human, which would be himself, the son of the one making the connection, which would be his father Abraham, even though he is the son of the God connector Abraham, he still could not tolerate that one. He said, no, this isn't Torah. But Jesus is the Son of God, or the connector of God and the great mediator between God and man, and you run far ahead with that, even though it does not gel, it doesn't fit with the Torah. You went too far, and your deception has been found out. Open your mouth and ask your teachers. Why have we been told that the story of Abraham offering Isaac is a type of Calvary, but it doesn't fit well? It's like fitting the triangle into the square. Isaac said, no, a human should never be the sacrifice. I can handle the fire, I can handle the wood. And you know, as I wrap it up, the problem with the fire here is that the wood would have been set up first, because you're not going to light the fire if you're not starting to burn the wood in preparation to burn the sacrifice, the body. Because the fire has to be started to burn something. So there has to be something first for the fire to be applied to. So he made the altar, and then he started the fire. But the body would come last. So he didn't mind going step by step, and you can go with your teacher step by step, but when you see the next step about to happen, which is the sacrifice, but you don't see the sacrifice to go on the altar, you should ask questions. And it should be an answer that fits with the Torah. He could say, I can see the wood and I can see the fire, but I don't see any lamb. Where is the sacrifice? Where? He was making the connector, the mediator between God and man, Abraham, or in the New Testament, Jesus. He was making the connector, the God connector, give some answers. Be responsible for your spirituality, even though you are my father. And tell me why I don't see in the Torah training you gave me all these years as I was growing up from a child. Why did you give me Torah training of what a sacrifice should look like, but I don't see it here? Dad, you're slacking off. Where is the rest of this whole picture, the rest of the whole scenario? Where is the sacrifice? You've got some parts that should make up the whole sacrifice, but not the final part, the body, the lamb. Why not? Make them answer, why doesn't the New Testament fit properly into these square? Alright? But instead, you ran for the fire so you could ignite the wood. You could ignite something, or you could supposedly ignite yourself on the day of Pentecost when the fire fell from heaven. And so you reached for the external heat of the fire, the warmth of it, the light of it, the brilliance of the fire, to do something with your external, because it's sat upon each of them upon their heads, just like the fire in the sacrificial days of the Torah should have done something externally to the body of the lamb. So Isaac is thinking, this is going to do something external to me as well. You're going to burn me up right here, Father? Like, come on, where is the sacrifice? Where is the sacrificial lamb? Because Isaac wasn't willing to settle with the fire doing something only externally to him, just like we settled for the story of the fire doing something external to the people on the day of Pentecost when cloven tongues like as a fire sat upon each of them. Isaac said, I don't want no more external stuff. If I'm drawn close to God and you are the connector of God, connecting me with God, I want something internal. I want a question answered. I want something that I'm searching for in my heart to be answered. My question that deals with something inside of me wants to know, where is the sacrifice? Because the fire is not supposed to burn just up on top of your head on your external day of Pentecost. It's not supposed to burn in the Old Testament just only on the body and burn the wood, the external stuff. He's like, look, the fire should burn inside of my heart. That's the fire I'm looking for with so-called God. The fire should burn, not the sacrifice, not the wood, not the lamb. The fire should burn in your heart. A fire of searching, a fire of questioning, a fire that makes you reposition your Bible, turn it around, flip it around, and ask some more questions. Ask questions in a different way. A fire that burns in you to search, to seek out things. That's a fire in your search for wisdom, your quest for more knowledge of what truth really is about. That's the fire that should burn on you. No wonder he says, I can see the fire. Because something was starting to burn in him. See, he didn't say that first when he saw the wood being set up to make the altar. But when the fire was lit, he realized something should be burning inside of me, because that is more important than what burns externally. I can see the wood and I'm all right. I keep my mouth shut with that. But when I see the fire and realize a fire should be burning in me, to question, to ask, to search, to seek, just like the Most High said, seek me and you shall find. You see, it got home to Isaac's heart. The priests and everybody else, they were fine with the external stuff of the sacrifice and the setting up the altar and the nice stuff and whatever. But something got inside the heart of Isaac. A fire was burning in there. He didn't come waiting for a fire to be set by his father. He had the fire to seek for truth in his heart before his father lit a fire. So, because the fire was already burning inside of him, he could question stuff and he could say, I see the fire, I see the wood, but where is the sacrifice? Because he knew no Torah sacrifice in the past should sacrifice a human being for any salvation or connection with God. And the Most High taught to Israel about that. I'm not going to bother go with those scriptures. I've read them before. I got more lessons on that too. So I'll save that for another time. So Isaac, if you say he's a type, he did not, as the story is showing us now, when it becomes more clear to you, he did not believe in human sacrifice on an altar. He did not agree with it. He did not even see it in the past of the patriarchs or anybody in the line of Torah activity. He did not see it. Why are you seeing human sacrifice as acceptable at Calvary? Patriarchs couldn't see that. Why are you seeing it in the New Testament? If they couldn't see human sacrifice as okay in the Torah days, if the Most High complained to Israel about their human sacrifices and said, I'm not into this Molech thing. If even God cannot see human sacrifice as okay in the Old Testament, why would he see it as being okay in the New Testament at Calvary? And why are you seeing human sacrifice at Calvary as being okay? The New Testament is fake. May the day come when you can see that a fire should burn not on an altar, but inside your heart, to light your search for the truth that is before you. That's the fire that should burn When you can see that kind of fire burning, you will ask all the questions you need to ask of yourself and of the people who are teaching you things. You will ask from a fire that burns in you. You will ask your teachers. I can see the wood of Calvary. I can see the fire at Pentecost. But where is the real sacrifice that should have happened at Calvary? Because what happened at Calvary was not the real sacrifice that anybody should be looking for a connection with quote-unquote God. God's going to make people and burn them up as a connection with Him. Something is wrong with that. The fire should burn in you to ask questions of those teaching you. Better than that, the fire should burn in you for you to ask yourself questions, because you will be more honest with yourself than people who want you to continue to support them, their lying doctrines, their deceptions, and so on. So they will tell you all kinds of fancy expert things that they have studied up. You know, people who are teaching these lies, who are aware of it, not the ones who are not aware, although they'll do it too, but the ones who are very aware, they listen to everybody's teachings and they read many books. And they look at every point that people make about this, that, or another topic. And they come up with all kinds of fancy explanations for every single question that thwarts their doctrine, so that they can have an answer ready for you when you come seeking for the truth, because they don't want you to forsake their deception. You are the one you should trust. When the fire burns inside your heart, ask yourself the question, why do I continue to believe in a Calvary? When the Most High, through Isaac and through the prophets, letting you know that He does not believe in human sacrifice. When that fire burns, you realize you're seeing the fire because you are now on a search for truth. I see the fire.